Hey, Duska, how are you?
Hi, I'm well, Raina. How are you?
Great. Well, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. A little bit about Duska Tadic. Duska, I'm really grateful and excited to have you here with us today. If Just a little bit about Duska and her background. She's had over 10 years experience as a clinical psychologist. Her biggest focus is to help people lead more purposeful lives, but I'm not going to sit there and tell you everything about Duska. I'd like Duska to tell us a little bit about her expertise and background. So Duska, over to you. If you could just tell our audience here today what your background is, and share with us, what your biggest purpose is in your expertise.
Wonderful. Thank you, Raina, for that introduction. So I'm a clinical psychologist. I've been working mostly in private practice for the last 10, 15 years. My expertise is mostly in, I see people of all ages, from children through to adults. So I have experience across the lifespan, but mostly I work a lot with people with anxiety, depression, stress. They tend to be kind of the most common things that people present with, as you could probably understand, especially in the current times. So,
Agreed.
I've worked, in university settings, in hospital settings as well, but mostly in private practice, where I kind of see all sorts of people coming through with various presenting problems. So, really my passion is to help people understand, the kind of life that they want to live and clarify their values and what's important to them, and then work out, what are the barriers that are stopping them from achieving this life that they want to have, I'm really passionate also about just reducing the stigma around mental health. We all have mental health. Sometimes we have good mental health days, sometimes we have bad mental health days, and it's just so important for all of us to realize that it's something that we all struggle with at times. And the more we can normalize it and talk about it, the better off, everyone will be. So I just love helping people, kind of create the life that they want to live and be happy.
I know that in our conversations, you've spoken to me about dealing with executives who are dealing with stressful lives. I mean, let's be honest, you've got life admin, you've got work pressures, you've got targets. And with all of our followings, because we specialize predominantly in executive sales recruitment, they've got $1 million targets and probably more, and they've got teams that they're responsible for, and it's challenging, and then they've got a family. So I think in a time like this, with the current lockdown, I can see there's people are really struggling to just remain sane and keep it all together. I think from your expertise, I mean, we've spoken about this, you're seeing a lot more people struggling with anxiety, stress levels, and mental health issues, just in general.
Exactly.
It'd be great to get some, expert advice or some guidance from someone like yourself on mental health strategies to keep sane in the current lockdown. I mean, that I think would be very, very useful to our following.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a topic that's, close to my heart and obviously really important in the current times, isn't it? And I'm glad to see that it's kind of been talked about a lot more, in the media around the focus on mental health and how important that is.
And businesses are also a bit more aware of it with the whole EAPA programs and things like that.
Exactly. Because, with this, obviously with the pandemic and with COVID, it's so easy to get caught up in all the things that we need to do to keep ourselves physically safe, the physical distancing and the masks and all of that. And that sometimes we can just forget that we need to be doing things also to look after our mental health, because it is absolutely an uncertain time. And I think most of us here in Australia are starting to get to that point as well, of that kind of pandemic fatigue. It's like the never ending You know, the
there's
news
the light at
updates
the end of the tunnel. There's no real light.
Exactly. Where is it? And so, yeah, you know, I think that it's important. The number one thing that's I want everyone to really notice, it's important to know, is that feeling a bit anxious and overwhelmed during these times is completely normal. You know, I think a lot of people kind of beat themselves up if they're not coping like they normally would. You know, I get a lot of clients saying, well, what's wrong with me? I should be coping better, or this shouldn't be so stressful. Like, you know, it should be easier, right? We're all working from home. There's more flexibility. It should be easier. But what we're finding is, in fact, it's actually creating a lot more pressure for most people, because, you know, there's no change. You know, every day is the same. We're living, working, sleeping, eating, doing everything in the one place at home. So that's extremely kind of tiring and monotonous.
And you're seeing the same people, like your partner. Like, you almost want to, like,
exactly.
Oh, you know what?
There's no stimulation. You know, get me out of here. Yeah. And you're
Yes.
living, you know, you're living with your partner or your children if you've got children. So there's no personal space or time out to do the things that we would normally do to manage our stress levels. So when people who are really busy at work, you know, as you're talking about your executives, when they're, you know, working long days and working super hard to meet these targets, they might have their outlets where they go out, you know, for dinner on a Friday night with work colleagues, or they might go and play golf or whatever sport on the weekend, or catch up with friends. And so all of those kind of coping resources have kind of been taken away. So we've had to get creative at ways of learning to cope differently within the restrictions. So it's so important, firstly, to be kind to ourselves and recognize that this is actually challenging. And, you know, if you're feeling like you're not coping, there's no shame in acknowledging that. And I just want everyone to realize they're not alone, definitely not alone in that. You know, it is, you know, it is really challenging. And also, just uncertainty creates anxiety. You know, human beings, we like to know what's going to happen. We like to have control. And usually, you know, pre-COVID, like we're very good at controlling our environment and doing things, setting things up in such a way that we can cope better, as I mentioned, whether it's with our work deadlines or family things. So now we have a bit of less control and more uncertainty, and that creates that uneasy kind of anxious feeling.
What do you believe are the 3 top things from a, you know, from a mindfulness perspective / strategy perspective, just to deal with well-being?
Just to deal with what, sorry?
Just to deal with
well-being. Yeah, of course. Well, you know, like I said, the number one thing I think is acknowledging that these emotions are normal, and it's okay to feel overwhelmed, because that's where the beating ourselves up can come in. You know, like I said before, you know, I should be coping better. What am I doing wrong? If we acknowledge the feeling without trying to squish it away, then we can actually create some more space to think about what we need to do differently, you know, and that it's okay to feel this way. We need to, one of the main things is to really focus on what we can control. So even though a lot of things feel like they're out of our control at the moment, we still have, you know, control to the extent of, you know, what we do in our days, how we structure our days. So what we eat, whether we get out into the sunshine or not, who we connect with, those kinds of things. So really kind of pausing and noticing what are the things that are within my control, and working on that can help us feel a little bit empowered, you know. Being realistic is also another one. I think
so
that
true.
And I'm a victim to that myself. Like with this lockdown, we're from home, so suddenly you know, I've bought myself an extra hour of time in the day where I don't have to travel to and from work. So now I'm squeezing in extra work in that time, whereas normally I'd just be traveling, you know. And so what I've found a lot of people are doing is they're actually working harder and working more, because we're like, oh well, we wake up, the computer's there, and we can just hop on and be on for, you know, 10 hours easily. So being really realistic around how much work you can achieve in one day and how productive you are, you know, so kind of being honest with ourselves and going, well, do I really need to start that extra hour earlier just because I can, or can I use that extra hour to just enjoy my breakfast, go for a walk, you know, have a bit of downtime before I get into my day. The other one is it's really important to take pause moments throughout the day. So if where possible, if you can, scheduling within your diary, you know, in between meetings, blocking out half an hour here or there to actually have a lunch break away from your computer, you know, get out in the sun, just, you know, get out of that room and kind of change scenery a little bit is another really important one for well-being. So those basics that we tend to forget sometimes, you know, sleeping well, eating well, staying connected to the people that we love, that were important to us.
And people that empower you as well, you know, that energize you, that
absolutely
positive energy. It's so important to be surrounded around that, right?
So important. Yeah, so important. There's definitely no shortage of kind of negativity or fear on the news and around, you know, and a lot of social media, it can be quite negative. And so
do you think people should stop watching the news?
I think people should definitely minimize the time that they watch the news. I usually recommend to my clients, like, just watch the updates, the relevant, stay up to date to know the essential information, and then switch it off, you know, and kind of create your own little bubble for the day where you can just focus on your self-care and what you need to get done. Because keeping informed every half an hour doesn't really change the situation, but it can just build stress